Hey guys, I am back, and today I'm going to be talking about I titled this Dysfunctional Relationship Models in Women with ASPD. This is kind of a big deal. Earlier we talked about can people with ASPD experience love, and we already established that we can, of course. We're not automatons, but we do intend to have unhealthy relationship styles when it comes to romantic relationships. That cannot be denied. Oftentimes we're manipulative. We think in terms of what can the person do for me, instead of having like an egalitarian relationship based on mutual trust and love and all those nice things that people look for in relationships. And there is a reason for that. Again, I always say these things are not an excuse, but they are a reason. And again, it's because of the way that we were treated as children. Blame the mother. No, but I mean, in a way, yes. We, women in particular, we have unhealthy, insecure attachments to our mother figure. And as a result, we do not trust very easily. We tend to shut down very easily because we were not given a healthy way to attach to the figures in our lives that were supposed to give us proper love and attention, and teach us how to trust and love properly. We were not given those things, obviously, or with our fathers. I had an absent father, and when I did meet him, he molested me. So obviously, daddy issues, you might say. And with my mother, I was raised by my mother. She was a diagnosed narcissist. So, I was not given the most healthy relationship models myself. And this is consistent among women with ASPD. So it's not just me, it's all of us. Different stories for everybody, but always the insecure attachment style for similar reasons. I'm going to read something here written by a woman. If I scroll up and try to find her name, it'll take me 500 years, but she cited Hare and Newman from their article in 2008. First, at the interpersonal level, psychopaths often appear to be entertaining, glib, and superficial, while others may perceive them to be charismatic, well-educated, and endearing. Psychopaths are manipulative, prone to grandiose thinking, and engage in pathological lying. Second, at the affective level, they lack remorse for the harm they may cause others, in relationships as well. They fail to accept responsibility for their behaviors. Although callous absence of remorse and lack of empathy for others are prominent features, psychopaths ironically often identify themselves as the victim in circumstances when they hurt or harm others. This is kind of important because oftentimes women will get involved in unhealthy relationships, and then, obviously enough and understandably enough, they will blame the perpetrator of the violence and the abuse, which of course, no victim blaming here, but also we choose these relationships as well. We choose, and I've done this, I've chosen abusive relationships, but I've chosen them, knowingly, willingly going into these relationships with unhealthy, abusive men, sometimes physically abusive, sometimes, otherwise abusive, emotionally, verbally. I have chosen again and again and again over the years men who are exactly like my mother, because she's the one who raised me. If I had been raised by my father, I'm sure I would have chosen someone just like him, but she was the one I was raised by. I've chosen men who are diagnosed sociopaths, once a diagnosed sociopath. He's the one I had a child with. And sociopaths have got their similarities with narcissists, of course. I mean, all cluster Bs have their similarities together. We are all cluster B personality disordered people. And we both have insecure attachment styles, sociopaths and narcissists. I had my red flags early on. And when I was younger, I was not nearly as adept at clocking those things. I didn't understand what I was doing. Certainly at the age of 19, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that those sorts of men were comfortable to me because that's what I knew. That's all I knew. And so as I got older, that didn't really change. And I never went to domestic violence therapy. I went to other kinds of therapy, but domestic violence therapy is its own particular thing, which I didn't really realize until much later in my life. While again, I don't victim blame, I do have my own culpability for these things of walking into these relationships. Even so much as fairly recently, although I did get out before I actually started the relationship this time, because I was like, what am I doing? I'm doing the same thing I've always done. I'm not going to do that this time, and I did walk away. And guess what? He was a diagnosed narcissist. So these things are very hard to change. These patterns are very difficult to change, especially when you have a personality disorder on top of it. It can be nigh to impossible, although not impossible, certainly not. Like with CBT therapy and domestic violence counseling, we can get past these things. But still, of course, it's difficult. When you're raised with a certain form of abuse, we tend to repeat that abuse in our relationships. It's not just people with personality disorders, it's everybody. But I do have my responsibility in these things for choosing these people. So I will continue with this reading. Finally, the lifestyles of psychopaths are characterized as high stimulus seeking, impulsive, irresponsible, and parasitic. They can also be in relationships as well. Psychopaths tend to be egocentric. They follow their own rules and are rarely embarrassed by personal, legal, or financial problems. Quite true. Although psychopaths are often portrayed in the media as serial killers, rapists, criminals, blah, 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 Hare and Newman argue that a dimensional versus a categorical approach more accurately captures various aspects in the nature of the disorder. Hare describes white-collar psychopaths as individuals who function reasonably well in society and may be employed as doctors, lawyers, psychiatrists, military personnel, business people, artists, and entertainers. Although these individuals rarely or discreetly break laws, i.e. tax fraud, overbill or double bill for services, etc., they possess similar emotionless, egocentric, and remorseless characteristics as those with more violent tendencies. The callous behavior of white-collar psychopaths, which I would be included in. I'm an artist, writer. I've been a freelance writer as a career and in the mental health industry. These psychopaths are most commonly expressed in the form of emotionless manipulation, cheating, and depriving others of personal wants and needs, engaging in meaningless sexual relationships, and neglecting the welfare of friends and family. These behaviors are masked by their social status, family backgrounds, charm, and intellect, which allow them to project a positive, trusting persona, making this type of psychopath difficult to detect. And I will stop there. So this is how we can present in relationships. And, goodness, this thing is heavy. And this is one of the problems that we have when trying to be more pro-social and healthy. This is the way we've been living our entire lives. We have these ideas of what relationships mean because this is our whole entire lives. We've been raised with these very abusive, insecure styles of attachment, and what we've been taught is love, which is abuse. And so, of course, we carry that on into our relationships as adults. And we view people as being untrustworthy and manipulators themselves, abusive themselves. So how do we relate to them? We do the same thing. We return the behavior. We choose people who are often manipulators and abusive themselves, although not always, certainly. Sometimes we choose good people and we treat them absolutely horribly. I have done that a couple times myself, and I'm still friends with one in particular who I learned to treat as a human being later on in life, and we're very good friends now. Thank goodness for him sticking it out with me, because now I have a very good friend in him. But I used him, I manipulated him, I was horrible to him. I really, really, truly was. And by him sticking around, not in a romantic sense, but sticking through me as in a friendship way, I learned through that person that not all people are manipulators and liars and abusers, because he wasn't. And through our friendship, I learned that. So that is a really good example of, detaching from someone in a romantic sense, but, kind of being there in the periphery and just as a friend and showing me what friendship and, what love is, So there's that. And it's very difficult to get beyond these things. And so for me, I also have a very difficult time dealing with monogamy. And so instead of cheating, my way of dealing with that is to, there's such a thing as ethical non-monogamy. There's polyamorous relationships where people are very accountable and they don't lie, they don't cheat, they just have a different relationship style that is accountable and doesn't involve lying or anything like that. It's just everyone is, a consenting adult. And even though we live in a sort of Christian-based society where that's considered to be pearl clutching, oh my God, no. But, we're all adults here. We can make these choices on our own if we feel like it. People with ASPD tend to balk from things like possessiveness and jealousy. We don't deal well with that, and I don't either. So the first sign of people being jealous or possessive towards me, I tend to back off and want to run, because I don't find it to be healthy, and it makes me feel very uncomfortable, because I dealt with a mother who was very possessive of me, and very punitive about my just even being out of her sight for 5 minutes, and very jealous of me in terms of me being a daughter who was, when I became a teenager, she had jealousy towards me of being her competition. So the way that rolls over into a romantic relationship, it should be fairly obvious. Jealousy and possessiveness I can't deal with, and I don't think that's healthy for anyone, really. I mean, in any relationship, and within a healthy person, a healthy paradigm, jealousy and possessiveness isn't healthy anyway. But for me, it's just the first sign of it, I have to go. And so that rolls over into my idea of what monogamy is about. To me, it's about jealousy, possessiveness, trying to own a person, and so I don't deal well with it. Be that healthy or not, there is a solution to that, which is non-monogamy, as long as you're honest about it. To me, that's a pro-social way of dealing with it. I don't cheat, I don't lie at all. So in any case, I know a lot of ASPD women who, have gone through their phases of being manipulators and liars and using their partners for their own gain, and don't wish to do that anymore. And I've certainly done that myself, because again, how did we grow up? We were used and manipulated by our parents in the worst ways possible, sometimes in the form of sexual abuse, oftentimes that, myself included. So our trust levels for humans in general are extremely low. I've considered myself misanthropic my entire life. So how to trust people? It's a difficult situation. But over time I've learned that certainly not everybody fits into this mold. Not everybody is to be mistrusted. Not everyone is a horrible human being. I think there's a lot out there who are, but certainly not everybody, which has been proven to me by the friend I mentioned previously. And, my trust issues with men are extremely low because of what happened with my father, but also with my mother as well. So trust issues with women as well are very, very difficult to deal with. But I tend to lean more towards men, romantically and sexually speaking. So of course that's where the problems tend to crop up. Although I consider myself to be, kind of fluid in that way. But the trouble goes both ways. I have run into problems with misandry before, but it's a very misogynistic society out there, so I think it's kind of balancing the scales a little bit. It's difficult, So my way of trying to be more healed in that direction is to just sort of remove myself from the whole romantic relationships pool entirely. I was single for 7 years, up until relatively recently, where I tried to make a little foray into the romantic pool, and the person I chose once again was the wrong person. So I didn't make that final step into making it a real relationship. Thank goodness I didn't. During that 7-year period, there was a brief period where I was in a polyamorous relationship, and that was great. I really enjoyed that, and it was probably the healthiest relationship I had, probably hands down, which is where I discovered that that kind of paradigm works for me. The lack of jealousy, the lack of possessiveness, although there was some between the two main people, which, that didn't really quite work for me. But I think just as a general example of a model that could work for me, it was nice. And I know other ASPD women who feel the same way, that if they're going to go in any direction and try to have a healthy relationship, that would be a direction they may go. There's a couple of them that I've spoken to, and for the same reasons that I do, that I feel that it would work. But yeah, we have a history of manipulation and using romantic partners for our own gain, for lying and cheating, all those things. Most certainly, it's part of our makeup. and having a very insecure attachment style and being cold, being emotionless, not really caring about hurting the other person. All those things that I read in that little article right there can certainly be said for us, and I've certainly treated people that way in the past. And many of the people I treated that way certainly didn't deserve to be treated any other way, because their treatment of me was horrible. So it was like this vicious cycle, this negative feedback loop, which, what did any of us expect? But if I want to be in a healthy relationship, I can't behave that way. Certainly, it has to be a different paradigm entirely. But I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I'm quite healthy enough, certainly emotionally, or just in terms of breaking that cycle. I don't know if I have broken that cycle yet, because, as I said, not too long ago, I made a brief little, dip my toe in the water, and it was like, nope, not ready yet, because I chose the wrong person yet again. And maybe I'll never get there. I'm not entirely sure. It's very possible I won't, but I know where it comes from. But knowing something on an intellectual level and knowing it inside are two different things, which is something I learned as well. But that's because I'm not all that in touch emotionally at all with myself, and I think maybe that's what it's going to take, is that final step of having that emotional connection with myself way longer before I can even begin to have an emotional connection with someone else romantically. I'm going to have that emotional connection with myself. That makes sense to me anyway. And I don't have that yet. So I think it's going to take quite a bit more therapy, some more looking at, I think it's going to take some domestic violence therapy, quite frankly, because that's where the main issue is, both from at home in my childhood and also from some past relationships, because it's been pretty grim in both directions. And those are different kinds of therapy. Just regular therapy is very different from domestic violence therapy, and I believe that all of us could benefit from that. All of this cluster B people, ASPD, women in particular, who have kind of perpetuated this cycle of abuse, could really benefit from it, and perhaps could maybe find healthy relationships that way. I'm certainly going to try. I'm actually looking for a counselor right now, but the system is so overcrowded, unfortunately, that it's on a waiting list. But I do have high hopes for it. I think that, and I've been told by other women in my group who have gone through domestic violence therapy that it's changed their lives in terms of finding a healthy relationship, and they have. I don't know if that's something I necessarily want. I'm very happy being alone. Most of my life I've gone through stretches of years where I've been not in a relationship, and I've been very happy that way. I tend to be unhappy in relationships, honestly. I like my autonomy. I like my own, being able to have my time to myself and not have it dictated by somebody else. But again, maybe in a healthy relationship, that's not what happens. I don't know. How would I know? But having that possibility open to me probably would be a good thing, because most women with ASPD don't really necessarily have that going on, or if they are in a relationship, it is more of an unhealthy model where they're using someone, or it's with someone that they don't feel a real true connection with. And as I've been saying over and over again, every human on the planet, we are social creatures. It's in our biology, it's in our DNA. And to have that lacking, that's why so many, I've done so much research on this. The suicide level statistics for people with ASPD are absolutely ridiculously high. Go to Google Scholar and look it up, where it's ridiculous. And part of that is because of our lack of true human connection. And I don't want that. I like myself too much, and I like life far too much to get to that point, because it is very isolating being the way that we are, So that's my piece on, our unhealthy attachment styles, our unhealthy relationship styles. We certainly, all those things that I said and read about how we can be in terms of manipulation and using people and the lying and the cheating, that's all certainly part of the way we can be when we are at our least healthy, on the lower end of the spectrum. But there is another end of the spectrum where we recognize this. We have self-awareness, we want to change, we know where it comes from. It comes from our, horrific past, and the way that we were never taught anything different. We were taught how to be this way. We were taught by our parents, but we want to make a change. We don't want to be controlled by our past. We don't want to be, we don't want that past to win out. We want to do something different. We want to make a different sort of a life for ourselves, and that's where I'm at. Even if I never get into a long-term relationship, I don't want to be that way with anybody or with myself either. So there you have it. I hope that this again was helpful, and also once again I'd like to thank everybody for all the really, really awesome, kind comments from people, especially in the mental health field. I really appreciate that a lot. I really appreciate that a lot. I can't say the word appreciate. It's like some mental block. Appreciate that a lot. And from the other people who either are diagnosed or undiagnosed with cluster B personality disorders or any other kind of mental health issue, I appreciate you making comments as well. I really like hearing from you. I like hearing from everybody except for the ones who make stupid comments. I don't appreciate you so much, but I delete you anyway. Again, I don't respond to those, generally speaking, unless I have some kind of a smart-ass comment to make, but that's really immature, so I'm trying to avoid that. But they can be really amusing, I have to say. No, I don't want to encourage it, though. I don't want to encourage it. But no, I really appreciate the people in the field, and I appreciate the people who are in the same boat as me, trying to just get a better understanding of themselves and the people that they study or that they help in the field. It's really vindicating for me in many ways, and makes me feel like it's good for me to keep up with these videos. I cannot believe all the views that they're getting already. It's really cool. I didn't expect that. I'm thinking, I'll get 3 or 4 views and you'll really catch on at some point. So it's pretty cool to see that, and I will continue doing what I do, and I hope to see you guys soon. All right, see you later, guys.